How do I roll to call us?
Participants, bring up your participant list.
Well, not everybody who comes is on the committee.
True.
Right?
Yeah, I'm admitting everybody to the room, so I'll keep an eye on that.
No, it's not that. It was the roll call. Who's on the committee? You know, we have that like official thing on the agenda.
Oh, yeah, right.
Closing doors.
I'll go off of an older one then.
Good afternoon, guys. I'm on an Amtrak, so I'm gonna be,
Okay.
so I'm traveling, heading north, but I'll listen for the most part.
That's dedication.
Yeah. With a mask.
Yeah.
Jeff, I'll give it one more minute and then we can adjourn. But I see that Mary has a hard stop at 2:45.
Yeah, it's a triennial, so my school psychologist also has to be there, so he can't cover for me because he's presenting reports, so it's a dismissal, so hopefully it'll be quick and I'll come back, but we'll have to see. I'll do my best today. I need about 3 of me this time of year.
All right, it is 2:03. We got anybody else in the waiting room yet? All right. Okay, so let us call this meeting to order at 2:03. First is roll call. I'm going off of the roll call list from last meeting. So these are just for the people who are members of the committee. So Dr. Gabino Aguirre, Nidia Bello, Dr. Ed Bond,
Here.
Cynthia Carrillo, Mary Doan,
Present?
Dr. Elizabeth Garcia,
Present.
Fabiola Gomez,
Present.
Todd McWhirter, John Marquez,
Here.
Jerry Mead,
Present.
Dr. David Moore,
Present.
Lorenzo Marassa. I'll note him.
I'm here.
Yep. Kevin Olson,
Here.
Mark Robertson,
Present.
Hilda Sanchez, What are they? Myself, Dr. Daniel Sandoval here, Dan Singer, and Jeffrey Weinstein. Okay. Let me go back to the original. So if we can all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Approval of the agenda. Do I hear a motion?
A motion to approve the agenda.
Mark motion. Do I hear second?
Second.
Jerry seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Approval of the minutes. Do I hear a motion to approve last meeting's minutes? No one wants to approve next.
I'll make a motion. I'll
I
motion
moved
to
it.
approve the minutes. It's Mary.
I second.
All right, Mary's first. Elizabeth second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Not your employer.
Hearing none, motion passes. All right. Item 2, public comments. Mr. Weinstein, do we have any public comments for this meeting?
No, no, we do
I
not.
mean, if you'd like to break it down.
All right. So no public comments. Item 3A, town hall meeting and survey results. So let us get into what we learned on the town hall's RE grade configuration.
All right, I'm gonna share my screen here. If you can enable me to share. All right, and then let me do. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so, all right, so I'm going to go over the results from the town hall meetings and the surveys that were submitted. All right, just to kind of go over the questions again, or the 5 options again. Option 1, all elementary sites would remain TK through, or would be TK through 6. Isabel would be a 7-8. Option 2, that's the split option, TK 3 and 4, 6. Option 3 is it's a K8 option, with the elementary schools being TK through 5, and then the Isabel Middle School would be 6 through 8. Option 4 is also the TK through 8 with 6th grade at the elementary level, and Isabel being serving 7th and 8th graders, and then the 5th option was no change at all. So on the first question of the survey, do you think Santa Paula would should convert one or more of the elementary schools to a TK8 facility? And can you see the numbers pretty clearly? Okay, so we brought 2 data points to you, both the parents and the staff. 69 of the 69 said yes, 71 said no on the K8. For staff, 22 yes, 51 no. And then 3 of them were left blank. The second question, do you think Santa Paula should move 6th graders to elementary schools and convert Isabel to a junior high? Parents, 120, so that was the overwhelming result on this one. 120 parents said yes, 20 said no. Staff, 52 yes, 21 no. And then on the third question, do you think Santa Paula should split the elementary schools into TK3 and 4 through 6 schools? Parents 8 yes, 131 no. Staff 19 yes, 54 no, and 4 blank. So on the Spanish surveys, we had only one survey respond for the digital survey. The rest of these were the paper. So I'm not quite sure. We're not quite sure what happened on the digital side of it, but 70% of the from the Spanish survey, 70% were choosing the option 1, which is the TK through 6, and Isabel being 7th and 8th. 7% chose option 4, and 22%, or excuse me, 7% option 3, 22% option 4 with the TK through 6 at the elementary, and 2 K8 schools, or 1 or more K8 schools, and then 0 on the no changes. These were some of the concerns that came up quite a bit in the comment section. School size, staff to student ratio, facility improvements, traffic flow, and parking. Those were kind of all lumped together in terms of the logistical piece of it, how that would work. Neighborhood schools, boundary changes, where would there were a lot of questions regarding, would there be boundary changes? Could students cross over or have the opportunity to transfer to another school within the district? And then extracurricular activities and specialized programs. One of the themes that was fairly common all throughout the town halls was if we did a K8, both parents and staff were concerned with, would the 7th and 8th grade would the 7th and 8th grade students in a K8 setting, TK8 setting, have the same programs and be afforded the same opportunities that would be provided in terms of sports and music that you would see at Isbell. So that was a concern, I think, through every one of the town hall meetings. And then would we be able to collaborate with the city on road improvements and safety of students? So crosswalks is a big deal, and the condition of our roads, especially around schools like McKevitt. Would those be improved? Parking was another one. Some of the schools don't have parking. So overall facility improvements. And then the need for more programs in our public schools in order to compete with neighboring districts and encourage parents to keep students in SPUSD. So that theme, and we really, in all of our town hall meetings, that was our why. So why are we looking at a possible change in grade level configuration? And the parents and staff both understand that we have to position ourselves to be competitive so that parents aren't choosing to take their students outside of our district. And then the survey, what grade are you, or do you have children currently attending? So the overall bulk of the surveys came from parents who have students at the elementary level, which is no surprise because that's where the changes would be. And the final slide is suggested implementation timeline. So what we're looking to do is if we make a recommendation for TKs through 6, the 22-23 school year would be the study year where we look at all of the factors involved in making this change. And then we're looking at 23 TK6 through in the year 23-24 for the implementation. And then given the numbers of the TK8, it was really close. If we go back, and I can go back and show you that data, but we're going to use the next 2 years, 22 through 24, to do a plausibility study to convert one or more of our elementary schools to TK8. So if I go back, so if you look at the top question here, you can see almost the split down the middle for the TK8, 69 of the parents yes, 71 no, and quite a bit difference here with the staff. So the next 2 years would be just to study the plausibility of making that TK through 8 change in one or more of our schools. So that's it. That's the data that we received. Any comments or discussion?
David, I got a comment or
Yeah.
question.
Uh-huh.
Was the number of people that took the survey, was that kind of about what you expected based on the number of students? Or is
Well,
that kind of low?
Well, superintendent could chime in on this. So what we believe in terms of response, we're looking at about a little over 3,000 students affected by this change.
Mhm.
And so if you look at the over, I guess about 300 responses, that's about a 10% response. And I guess that's pretty good in terms of surveys.
Well, I was looking and you had the Spanish responses and it seemed like those were really low. So
Low.
I don't know if that's, if there was a good outreach to them or did they just not want to respond? I mean, I know it's
Well,
difficult with them.
Right. And so what we're thinking, and I don't know, this is one of the ideas that came up, is you have to, once you fill out the survey, you have to submit it. And because we only got one response back on the digital side of it, all of those, 18 of the 19 were from the in-person meetings, right? So we definitely will keep the survey open and try to figure out why we didn't get a response on the digital side. So
Well, but we did get quite a few Spanish speaking parents at the town halls.
we
Right.
did. Mhm. We did. Yeah. There was a good showing. In fact, sometimes the groups were larger than the English speaking side of it. So yeah, so they showed up, but just like the even in the ones that I led, not everybody filled out you had people that took the slip with them and said, I don't feel comfortable making the decision right now. I'll go online later and do it.
Yeah.
And so whether they did or not, I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
So Dr. Moore, is this then, and Mr. Weinstein, is this then an absolute done deal? We're going to move forward with TK6 in a year from now? Well, not next year, but the year after, or are there other steps that
No,
will be taken or?
yeah, no, this is not an absolute done deal. It has to go to the
Okay.
board for approval.
Right.
And so what we're doing is, as a strategic planning committee, we're making a recommendation
Okay.
of what we think the board should consider doing. And
Okay.
then the board will then consider it at a board meeting and then,
Right.
or 2 board meetings, and then make a decision on that. So
Yeah, I
it's
know.
still up to the board to decide, but we're just saying that we just wanted to put like an outline together that's saying, there's no way we're going to start it next year, right? I mean, that's just
Right.
not going to happen. So holding the 6th graders back, we feel comfortable that if we take a year to really work on it, get all the logistics done, that holding the 6th graders back 1 year for their final year would work. And then, but we also realize that 7 and 8, whether it's 1, 2, or whatever amount of schools, if the board chose, there's a lot more plausibility studies that need to go in, not only in facilities wise, but also on teacher assignment wise.
Mhm.
Because in 7 and 8, now into single subject credentialing and just, a whole bunch of different things like that. So there's a lot to go into it.
Mhm.
So what we want to do is say, look, we know that we can get the TK through 6. We're very confident about that. And I think the teachers are too. But I think that everybody is like, oh, the jump to TK through 8, we want to do, or the community has said they would really like us to consider it. But we also need to answer a lot of questions before the board would approve that.
Okay, thank you. I know people are curious and I get asked by parents like, and
Yeah.
staff. and stuff.
Everywhere
just-
I go, people are, I went to the supermarket the other day and I wore my little badge around my neck. Dumb, I know, dumb, not the smartest thing to do. But I was in line and people saying, oh, you guys are thinking about doing this. And I'm like, yes, we're thinking about doing it. We're
Yeah.
studying it, but nothing has been decided yet. So,
Perfect, thank you.
so really what we're asking everybody today is to, talk about any of their concerns of making this outline the recommendation to the board from the strategic planning committee, or if you'd like to tweak it, or if you'd like to put it differently, and then we can then, take it on to the board. The administration would then take it to the board.
I would just say, for speaking on behalf of my site and like the Cabot, that are both small in physical side, the physical plant is small, that we're gonna have to, into next year, think about, every once in a while we get this huge bubble of kindergartners or, students, is we're gonna have to think about that, because that will affect, we're gonna have to commit to, like at my site, I would suggest committing to just 2 grade levels, 2 kinders, and not create another bubble, because then if we get to that next year and we have a bubble of 3 classes per grade level going up, it's gonna interfere with us being able to keep those 6th graders a year from now, at the end of next year. So, so we need to think about that as we're accepting our enrollment and looking at our enrollment numbers for next year. So, as I could do it if I have 2 per grade level and 1 TK. But if we start expanding beyond that, then I won't be able to keep all the 6th graders. And we do not have physical space on the grounds for any more portables. We have more classrooms than we should have for a campus this size. So, we need to think about that too, and where they're going to play and how we're going to run PE concurrently with recess, et cetera. So there are things still that need to be hashed out. So I'm glad we're taking that extra year to work on those and get input from everybody on all the pieces that we need to consider.
Mark, you have your hand up.
Yeah, just to echo what Mary was saying, I know that I attended the teacher meeting and a number of teachers had pretty significant worries about how all of this would kind of fit together. There were like kind of 3 areas with facilities, programs, and grade reconfiguration. And at the meeting, it was said, we don't really want to dive too deep into programs and facilities at that meeting. But I think teachers would feel a lot better knowing that they're going to spend another year for the studying and thinking about all of those issues before we actually implement. So I would strongly support having that year of time to make everything set up correctly before we try to make that move.
Just from a board member's perspective, right? I would assume that, we're going to take time to make sure we have all those questions answered and then represent what we're going to do, because it's one thing, and I think that was clear in the meeting, that people were like, well, I don't know, right, for sure, what is it going to look like? It kind of depends. And I'm kind of that type of person too. I mean, I've been thinking about this for a while, so I have some vision of it, but I know there's a lot of things I haven't considered, right? So, we're going to have to look at all of those different things. We're going to have to look at boundaries, and when people realize that boundaries can change, right, or may change, right, to accommodate this, they may go, wait a minute, you didn't tell us that. I think it's very clear though that, from what I was listening to at the meetings that I was participated in and from the survey results, that, they really want to get the 6th graders out of Isbell, right? I think that's very clear. There's even support, pretty strong support for that on the staff level. I think the one that's more unclear is the K-8. Not so much on the parent perspective, 50-50, people have choices, right? People want choices. That's not necessarily a big deal. On the staff side, I'm a bit more concerned about, that there's a kind of overwhelming against. And so if it was something that the board decided they wanted to pursue, right, because they see that there's enough people that really want it, that portion will also have to be planned out and, kind of researched, kind of even more so than the sixth graders being, brought back. Because we're going to have to make the case to to you teachers, right, that it's a good idea and we can handle it. And so that's a bigger lift, I think, and I think when we do it, that was another thing that people were asking is, well, which schools, right? Well, we've got to say it, right? We've got to flesh out what that vision is going to be. But I think the priority is to bring the sixth graders down and to get that working. So I think I support that timeline because it gives us a measured way. It still gives us a vision of where we want to be in 3 years though, right? And it gives us some kind of off ramping, right? If we need to, gives us the time to actually do it right. So please, more comments. Don't be afraid that it's being recorded. We won't hold it against you.
I'll just add one thing. I think when it comes to the TK-8s on the teacher side and on the administration side and on the staffing side and stuff, I think because you're working in the school and you see all the moving parts and all the logistics and all the different things that would possibly have to happen for it to be a reality. I think that is, it's kind of almost overwhelming to just grasp it and then run with it. And I think, as we go through the plausibility study for that, I think that's where when we have more answers, more town halls are done, more outreach is done for input and explaining, okay, we've worked this out, we've worked this out, now what do you think? And kind of do that thing. Because 2 years is a long time to do a plausibility study. I think we can get all the answers, whatever way it falls, yay or nay, we can get all the answers to all those logistic questions. And I think the staff would at least feel better knowing that we're addressing all of their concerns logistically. And I think right now, when I talk to teachers, I keep hearing, well, have you thought of that? Well, have you thought of that? Well, have you thought of that? Have you thought of that? It's like, we've thought of a lot. And of course, you don't think of everything, right? You can't, it's just impossible. But if we can, get 90% of it wrapped our brains around, and then we work the other 10% out, then it would be good. But I think they're even more concerned on the K-8 when it comes to, have you thought about these, things? And I always tell them, yeah, I actually do think about things before I do them, but I get why you're concerned.
Any other comments from anybody who hasn't had a chance to speak? Jerry.
I just wanted to say, I think we're addressing in this presentation, thank you, Dr. Moore, two of the main problems that have come up over and over and over again. And they're basically the reasons that we're doing this. And one is the elephant in the room of Isabel. And we heard it in every presentation that I was a part of. And it was overwhelming that sixth graders need to go back for several different reasons, for maturity and for overcrowding, is just to get the numbers down so we can have a little more control, have a little bit more rebranding, have a little bit more whatever. Parents were pretty outspoken about that. And the other reason I think that comes up is our declining enrollment, and people are choosing other options. And hopefully the final decision will come down to Santa Paula has some choices of what type of school. We're going through the rebranding, but also the grade configuration of where they would like their child to go. And so I think this presentation hits both of those. I know we have lots of other concerns, but those were the two main ones that I heard in the town halls that I attended. So anyway, the presentation looks good. I didn't know about the 2-year for the K-8, but if that's the way we're headed and we can answer concerns in 2 years and everybody would be more comfortable with the change, then so be it. I think a lot of other things are going to depend on these planning things, and they're going to get held up. We've got lots on our plate right now, but I know in facilities, we need to move ahead with some things that are going to depend on the outcome of these issues. So yes, we're taking planning years, but we can't take too long. So just with the condition of the building at Isabel, it is a main concern for a lot of people in Santa Paula. So anyway, thank you for the presentation.
Any other comments?
I'll go ahead and just briefly say that I concur with much of what was said. The timeline looks really good. I like that we're moving forward, but there's also that opportunity for planning and consideration. I think my principal colleagues, as we prep for change, that will be something that they feel is doable. And, with regard to the K-6 and the K-8 options, I think that will really address our students and parents and families who are looking to transfer out of the district. It will provide them with options so we can keep them in-house. And so, as the high school principal, would look forward to having students be able to go through our wonderful programs in Santa Paula.
I just have 2 comments for the public, for anybody who might be, on or watching this later, because one of the things that, I've heard is that, oh, well, I got a 5th grader, right? And is this going to happen, right? And they might be disappointed that it's not going to start next year, right? What I can say to that, right? Or even the going to the TK, right? This is a big change, right? And we don't want, and there's a lot of moving parts, and we don't want to just reflexively make a change and say, okay, we're going to hope for the best, because we've done that way too many times, right? We need to be prepared, for these changes. It doesn't mean that we can't make a decision for the K-8 next year, right? If we get the planning done, but it does take some time to step into that, right? Because we'd hold back the 7th graders, then to hold back the 8th. I mean, that wouldn't really fully be, we wouldn't fully have K-8s, right, for another 4 years, right? So, I think that's, just, maybe disappointing, but, I think it's just the reality of moving the ship this big, right? The second point, I think, kind of goes back to Jerry's about Isabel, right? And I think that, we need to make a concerted effort, right, to address programming there, right? Because we're not losing Isabel, right? And just by moving the 6th graders down doesn't mean that everything is going to be, that Isabel is going to be where we want it to be. Certainly we need to look at the facilities, but I think even more importantly, we need to look at the programming to make sure that that's a school that we are absolutely proud of sending our kids through. So, that I think is going to be part of it. It isn't completely related to grade configuration per se, but we are going to be talking about that very, very soon within the within this committee. So any other comments? Anybody else have any opinions or concerns? All right, well, do we need to officially vote on a recommendation then?
I would.
Yeah, I would think so too. So do I hear a motion?
I'll move that we take the suggested recommendation to the board as presented by Dr. Moore.
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Anyone opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. All right, we got something accomplished.
Big one.
So the next thing, let's move ahead. Let's see, hold on. Next item is CTE pathway options and combinations. So I'm going to share my screen because I've been asked to for that presentation. And here we go. Can you all see that?
All right, well, good afternoon. So we are going to provide an update as of this month on where we are at with our career technical education program. Go to the next slide, please. So as a reminder to the committee, our process has included program evaluations from teachers, administrators, CTE student survey interest, consultations and meetings with our CTE teams at both the middle school and the high school. We've worked with our CTE consultants in each industry sector. What else have we done? We've met with industry partners like the Farm Bureau of Ventura County, the local Carpenters Union. We're working with the Ventura Community College deans in regards to dual enrollment, Ventura County Office of Education leaders, and community members such as yourselves that are here in this meeting. So we've identified 6 pathways. We are calling them pathways, but we'd like to propose that we title them academies to bring them all to the same level. And to our messaging is that we are including all the elements of a high quality CTE program within each industry that is moving forward for the 22-23 school year. So the pathways that we have identified are Human Service Academy. Our Human Service Academy will be focusing on our education and public service. Then we have our Engineering Technology Academy, our Cybersecurity Academy, Agri-Science, our Patient Care Academy, and then the Arts Academy. So within each of these pathways, we have identified at the middle school, there will be a course that will be aligned to each academy. So currently our middle school team of administrators and teachers have identified public safety, an exploratory course that'll align with our Human Service Academy. Automation and robotics, we had a really strong program a couple years ago at the middle school that we are looking to bring back to life, and we've identified a teacher who's willing to be trained, and we're going to work with that teacher during the summer to prepare him to begin teaching this course. Cybersecurity and agri-science are to be determined. We're looking into connecting back with the students to survey their interest in these 2 industries. There is interest in the medical field, so there will be a course called Health, Safety, and Wellness, and also an arts class that will align to the Arts Academy, and these are all at the middle school. Exploratory courses that will feed into the high school courses. So within each pathway at the high school, we're looking at an introductory course that will lead into a concentrator course, a capstone, and eventually, hopefully in senior year, all of our students will be given the opportunity to take a college level course and or that entering into industry and getting some work-based learning experiences. Next slide, please. So possible new industries to explore in the future. When we did administer the student interest survey to our high school students, there were additional industries that are not identified as a clear academy for the 22-23 school year, but these are additional industries that we will begin to explore. At number 4 on the list of interest, business and finance, and then marketing, sales and service, fashion and interior design, and building and construction trades. So as I mentioned, we've began preliminary conversations and partnering with different business leaders and community leaders. And so one of those has been within the building and construction trades. And so for the 23-24 school year, we're looking to add an additional academy within the building and construction trades. Dr. Garcia wanted to share a little bit more on the preliminary work that we've done. And Dr. Garcia.
Thank you. So Director Gonzalez and I had an opportunity to meet with some representatives from the construction union and are excited to just hear about the various ideas for getting students from doing some projects and then eventually maybe phasing in a construction pathway or academy. And so one of the things that jumped out at us in the meeting is they talked to us about some pre-internship opportunities that can actually begin in the 5th grade and go all the way up to the senior year. And so what we have talked about doing is having before and after school programs that we start that we would be able to bring in our younger students and have a 5th through high school program that is before or after school, where students would be able to gain hours toward this pre-internship opportunity and eventual certification because they would have to do 500 hours in total. And so we're excited about the opportunity. We're still exploring ideas. As the title on the slide says, possible new industries to explore in the future. And we'd really like to start there because we know that the construction industry sector really offers a lot of opportunities for students.
So as we build the high quality elements into each of the 6 pathways that or academies that we previously identified, there is a lot of work that we need to do, and we're hoping to build a team to support our teachers, our counselors, and build in the elements of a high quality program. So we're looking at exploring industry liaisons. The industry liaisons would be a partner to our teachers to be able to build in the work-based learning experiences. And this could look within the classroom. Our industry liaison could connect with our organizations and companies in the community and bring those experiences into the classroom, and then vice versa, identifying internship opportunities that our students can enter in within the community and the region. We are also looking at incorporating our tutors within the classrooms. We have found in this process of evaluating our program is that we could do a better job at marketing and recruiting and enrolling our students with special needs, our English learners, our special populations into the classes. But some of the feedback that we are receiving is once they are enrolled and in the class, we need to support them so that it's a sustainable model so that they are successful throughout the sequence, the course sequences. We also are in need of a CTE counselor or counselors that are able to monitor our students and build the commitment to continue the sequence so our students know that when they enter, they are exiting with certain certifications, trainings, that they have A through G eligibility on their transcripts, that they're marketable when they leave us if they choose to enter into industry or they choose to continue into a post-secondary education. And that's the work we're looking to seek with a counselor specific to the CTE program. And additionally, to enhance the level of instruction within the classroom is to have a coach that our teachers can lean on to plan alongside, to really build in the elements as well as meeting the standards. And so these are some of the additional resources that we need as a team to build up our program. Dr. Garcia, is there anything you wanted to add on?
So what I'd like to do is just to emphasize the importance of this slide. So as you know, Director Ornelas, next to each of the red arrows, what we have are those high quality indicators of a CTE program. And we know that with our efforts to refocus and streamline our academies and our CTE program, we really do need to focus on the personnel that are supporting our teachers in the classroom. So our teachers are going to be designing curriculum. They're going to be working with students, probably being advisors for the CTSO, the Career Technical Student Organizations, and also making sure that our students are out in internships and doing that supervising. However, they're going to be limited in terms of what they're able to do because of the fact that they are full-time instructors in the program, and we want their focus to really be on building strong, high-quality curricula. And so where we definitely would ask for support is in the area of support personnel, the liaison. We can't emphasize enough how important having experts from industry will be at helping to place our kids out into internships so that they can earn certifications. Our tutors, we've seen some great models with our AVID program in terms of using college tutors. So we would like to bring in CTE tutors in a very similar way. CTE counselors who can be extremely committed, as Director Ornelas indicated, are very important because they will be looking at the A through G. They will be looking at the graduation requirements. They will be looking at how students are progressing through earning internships, and the instructional coaches would be there in order to just ensure that there is high quality instruction and work as partners alongside our teachers in the classroom so they can develop high quality CTE related curricula that are all standards based in California. And so all of these will come together in order to ensure sustainability of our program so that our students ultimately are the beneficiaries and then our local community as well.
You can go to the next, yes. And the last slide is just highlighting an additional resource and some areas that we do need support in, and that is the facilities. Currently, we have an identified facility for agri-science, the Human Service Academy, and the Arts Academy. The Arts Academy, we have excited that we'll hopefully start construction in the summer on our 600 building, and there's a design, and we had a committee a couple of years ago, and everything looks like it's up and running. Areas where we do need to identify a facility that can meet the industry demand and our students are experiencing and working in facilities that are that will prepare them to enter into industry. Our post-secondary education is our patient care pathway, our cybersecurity, and engineering. Just so, for example, in our patient care academy, we're looking to partner with Ventura County Medical Center, and those experiences could be on site at the center, but they also could be within our campuses here. And so if we're looking at hospital beds and students being able to draw blood and chairs, and just we need that space to be able to create those learning experiences for our students. And I think you go to the next slide. And that is everything we have. Questions, comments, thoughts?
I guess it's perfect. I'm gonna wait. I'm always, I'm the chair. I should wait for anybody else. Anybody have any questions in terms of, you know, the feasibility, right? Cost, rollout timelines, anything in regards to CTEs, you know, the resources needed, et cetera?
I guess I'll ask the question just for public record, even though I know most of the answer regarding funding. This is pretty much all grant funded, or do you want to talk a little bit about how the funding works with the grants that you write, that we receive both in consortiums or on our own? And there is a matching component to most of those grants, correct?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. So when we do write grants, we're only limited to the, we could ask for as much as we want. So we could ask for a certain amount, but we'd have to match that with a 2-to-1 match or a 1-to-1 match. So larger districts are able to ask for more money because they have more money to match. So in regards to the resources that we've identified, yes, we do want them to, we will grant fund them, but we also want them to be sustainable. So the model that is proposed is a co-funded model where the district is showing commitment to our program, as well as the grant being able to get these resources up and running. And some of these, some of this funding is one-time money. So for example, the facility, the 600, that's a one-time funding, but some of these are 3-year cycles. So I guess in a nutshell, yes, these will be grant funded to get them up and running, but the commitment from the district is critically important for sustainability of our program.
Do we know how much money we spend on CTE programming at this point? Okay, we have like even a ballpark-ish if you had to like.
I don't have a number, but we could, you know, work with Kevin and identify, but that would be a task, yes, to see from what year we would be identifying and, you know, collecting all of our expenditures, etc. But I mean, it could be done. It would just be a task, yes.
Yeah, so we do separate out in a specific account code given to us by the CDE all of the grant funds that we receive and use. So that's pretty easy to pull out real quick. Really, the kind of the other part is that we have to collaborate with Christina to talk about that matching side, because you know, most of the time the matching side isn't going to be defined necessarily within our accounting structure. We just normally run reports out and look at those and collaborate with Christina and give her places where we might be, normally it's money, we try to identify dollars we're already spending that just are relative to the program, so that we're not really creating new expenditures. We're just claiming expenses that we kind of already would already have, right? So.
Right.
I mean, I think that's one thing that I would be very interested in, right, as a member, right? So you have those 6 pathways, you have 4 additional academies, right? I'll start using the new language. We have future ones that we want to do. You know, each one is going to have a cost associated with it, you know, and some are going to be more expensive than others. You know, I would assume that, say, cybersecurity, well, there's an initial, you know, expense, right, of the computers, and maybe they're pretty high end, you know, then, you know, maybe going forward it's not so expensive. But engineering, on the other hand, or even say patient care, because patient care would probably use a lot of consumables, that would cost more, right? And so then I would want to start seeing, okay, well, how many students are in each? You know, are we spending a lot of money on patient care, right? Because it's an expensive program and only, you know, 15 are going into it, right? Versus, say, cybersecurity, where we got 60 people and it's not as much, you know, because we will probably, you know, at some point, you know, right now, it does seem like we've got a lot of one-time money, but I'm sure the state budget won't be as rosy in the future, right? And then we've got that question of sustainability. So anyways, Dr. Garcia, yeah.
Yes, so something I would like to add, in addition to the fact that Director Ornelas is a fantastic grant writer. Prior to Director Ornelas becoming our Director of College and Career, we had the CTEIG grant, right? So that was the Career Technical Education Incentive Grant when we were a part of the county initiative, right? So VC Innovates might ring a bell. And then with the California Partnership Academies that were in existence, we're getting about $70,000 a year for each of those academies. And then one factor that has to be considered is that students are getting elective credit, which is part of the graduation requirement. So in a sense, where those costs are going to be costs that we have to pay for anyhow. And so what we're doing is making sure that they are also UC A through G, also taking care of things like science elective requirements. Our patient care is we're going to try to make that a science elective requirement. And so our students will be able to earn their graduation requirements. At the same time, they're becoming CTE completers. At the same time, we're going to give them dual enrollment, right? So we're getting our bang for our buck when we think about the costs that might be associated with the given student's education.
I mean, that's perfect, right? So,
Daniel, I have a question.
yes.
Thank you for, I think, Liz, that's a great, that's a good way to get a lot in return. My question has to do with the whole idea of credentialing all these teachers. Of course, probably begins with a commitment from them, and then just
Hey.
as you want to sustain the program, you want to your staff. So can you speak to that? Maybe not as many as before, but you have a good number of areas that you're going to be possibly instituting. So yeah, my question would have to do with credentialing, of proper credentialing.
Your CTE credential? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
So go ahead, Liz, if you wanted to answer. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that this is something that Christina and I have a lot of discussions about, and we work together to find our teachers who have industry experience. And so this has been something that we've worked hard on ever since we received the VC Innovates and CTEIG. And so, like most recently, I think I've assisted at least 3 people in getting their CTE credentials in the last few weeks, and helping getting them to the county credential specialist. And so that is a conversation I strike up with pretty much any individual who comes through my office. I'm like, so what's your industry experience? And it's really about kind of just knocking on the door, finding out what people bring, because many of our teachers, for example, we've got currently on our staff 3 engineering credentialed teachers and 1 who will qualify to get maybe an externship in order to get that credential. And so there are 15 industry sectors, and we can work with our partners in the community as well as our partners in the certificated and classified staff. So right now, an area, for example, might be patient care. You might ask a question like, do we have enough? Do we have enough people who are credentialed in health and medical, health and medical? And the answer would be yes. And that is actually relatively an easier credential to find people who have experience out in the community. So Director Ornelas, do you want to say anything else with regard to credentialing?
I just so the committee knows that, like Dr. Garcia mentioned, identifying an individual who has expertise within our industry or within an industry is the easier part than the willingness to come to our site to teach our students. So that's what Dr. Garcia is referencing is we want to encourage the community and industry experts to come to our campus to teach our students in each of these pathways. So I think I mentioned it last time, we are recruiting. So if anybody knows anybody in all the industries that we identified who may be willing and wanting to partner with us, send them our way.
And if any of you have any special experience, I can get you a CTE credential in 2 to 3 weeks, at least the preliminary.
How much you pay?
Let's talk, Dr. Sandoval.
Yeah, we'll talk.
Jerry.
Not volunteering. I just wanted to say, just like at the board meetings, thank you for all this work on the academic side of, we've been talking about grade configuration and rebranding the elementary schools and working on programming there. And you have come such a long way of putting so much effort into really upping the game at the high school, and it's exciting. So I just wanted to say thank you on behalf of the board for all the work you've done. It's amazing how it's going to be stepped up, and thank you.
We appreciate all the support from the board and all of your guidance.
So can you talk a little bit about, your second slide was really great, right? That showed the introductory course and what have you. Can you talk a little bit more about what is going on at the middle school?
Sure.
Or what
Sure.
you envision?
Do you want to share it, Dr. Sandoval? So the process that happened at the middle school was that the administration sent out a survey. Mark, maybe you want to add insight into that, but the way I understand it is that the students were surveyed on their interest, and as well as the teachers, what they were interested in teaching in terms of electives. So after that data came in, as well as the counselors giving us numbers in regards to sections. One of our last meetings was just yesterday with Dr. Fabila. And so what we did is I shared the work that the high school is doing and identifying the 6 industries that are moving forward. And so from there, we were able to identify, so let's go through them. So for the Human Service Academy, one of the industries that we are going to include within that experience is law enforcement, and hopefully moving into EMT and firefighting. And so we are exploring the idea, and I've had preliminary conversations with Dr. Bradley and seen how we could, and Dr. Garcia has reached out to our SRO and seen how we could incorporate our SROs at both the high school and the middle school in providing that instruction for our students, because the way I understand is our SROs contract does include teaching. And so we want to explore that. Again, it's preliminary, but bringing in our SROs to teach the exploratory course within the public safety course at the middle school, as well as incorporating those same learning experiences into the Human Service Academy. Engineering technology, we are going through the robotics technology sequence. And so to feed into that, we have automation and robotics, which is a PLTW course. So the work that we will be needing to do is, all these events are up to date. Just this weekend, the middle school provided a STEM day, and there was some collaboration between our high school teacher, who was there, engineering teacher, having these conversations with our middle school teacher, Miss Maida Davison. I want to, thank her for reaching out to our middle school teacher. She built this partnership, and now one of the middle school teachers is now excited to take on this course, which is going to be a lot of work because our PLTW training is extensive. And our teacher who at the middle school, Mr. Zachariah Murray, he has showed interest, and so he's gonna have a lot on his plate, and with my support and Dr. Favila and the team, we're going to get him trained. But he is showing a lot of excitement and that would be great because we have the curriculum ready and the equipment is there and everything is there from our previous instructor. So that would be a great experience to align to the high school. In regards to cybersecurity and agri-science, those didn't come up as high interest for our middle school students. That's the way I understand right now. But Dr. Favila does want to reach out to the students again, maybe in a survey, to give them some more information on what we're offering at the high school level and maybe see if there is interest to build an exploratory course. Patient care, the students are interested in culinary arts and health. So what we did is we're going to build a curriculum that incorporates the culinary arts, maybe going through the nutritional route of health, teaching them, dietitians and really tapping into what the student is interested in, and then aligning to what the curriculum is in patient care. And there are some alignments. It's just a lot of work. We're rebuilding curriculum, and I just want to thank the teachers at the high school and the middle school. We just came out of a meeting with Arts Media Entertainment this morning, trying to build our academy. And, they're going to put in a lot of work. All of our CTE teachers are going to put in a lot of work the remainder of this school year into the summer. And they're excited, they're ready. And then, like I said, Arts Academy, we just had Mark Lopez meet with all the Arts Media and Entertainment teachers at the high school. And he came out of there excited because he has a full outline of what the exploratory course will look like in regards to performing arts as well as digital media, what's offered at the high school. So each teacher was able to share how Mark can rebuild his class so that it's a full wheel of exploring the arts, media, entertainment. So our students are informed, but also have an idea of what they're getting into once they enter into high school.
Just in terms of cybersecurity and agri-science, right? I mean, is there a broader interest in, say, computer science and, say, environmental sciences?
The way I understand, and Mark, you might have the data, but arts came up, just the skill of art. So students wanted to maybe learn different types of media in arts, or they want art, I think, came out as number one. So Dr. Favia is looking into that. And then I have my list, but something else came out at the top. Do you remember what it was, Mark? On your student interest?
Not really off the top of my head. I know they surveyed 6th and 7th grade students. Since I teach 8th graders, it's more of the high school part that I'm familiar with, and the transition to high school. I know art was a big one. Some of the culinary things that you mentioned. We do have a pretty good environmental science elective that's doing quite a bit. So it is, I don't know how well that overlaps with agriculture science, but if there's kind of a sciencey element there, that could be a way to look at it.
Yeah, I think it was that one. That was the one I was missing. Thank you.
Part of me just wonders if the students know what agri-science is, do they know what, I don't know how well that was explained with the 6th and 7th grade students when they surveyed them.
That's kind of our thought also. So that's why Dr. Fab, I offered to maybe do a little mini version of what we did for the high school and some informational videos, and I'm bringing it down to their level so that they're able to be informed when they make a response.
And I know just at the high school, we do have, advanced placement, environmental science, and we are looking at, AP computer science or computer science, because we know that students have an interest in that. And obviously in cybersecurity, students are earning certifications, they're doing some coding, they're also doing some coding and engineering. And there is definitely, I suspect your question, Dr. Sandoval, was about kind of the integration of ag and cybersecurity. Is that where you're going with your question?
Well, part of it, right, is that, I mean, as you two know, but no one else does. Like, Channel Islands is thinking about creating a sustainable agriculture program, right? And so, that would be more sciencey, right? But dealing with ag. So, it just got me to think about, our ag program, not just being about, growing, and not just the science of ag, but also about, natural resources, water management, climate change, and what have you. Because I know, right, millennials and Gen Z are really interested in climate change, right? I mean, that's something that drives them. And maybe that's a way to hook into, taking that, what they're interested in, and broadening it into, a career like, ag or a sustainable ag or what have you. So, and then the other thing, like with cybersecurity, right? I mean, cybersecurity is just one element of computer science. There's data, analysis, there's, coding, there's, infrastructure, what have you. There's a lot to it. I kind of wonder whether, it would make more sense to keep it a little bit general and maybe have concentrators like, cybersecurity, right? Later on down the line. I don't know, right? I mean, this is just me spitballing right now. So, but I know that.
Good,
Oh,
because tomorrow cybersecurity is meeting as the team, and Joaquin's going to join them. So anybody wants to pop in can. Cybersecurity is next, so this is very timely.
And I know that one thing that we've been looking at is where can we overlap across pathways to have integrated projects. And so this is a definite place where we can see integration.
And there are some other things, and this is where, I think maybe John Marquez, who I think dropped off. So I'll speak for him, right? His connections into the community would be, useful. Like, for instance, in cybersecurity, if you have any access to the outside, if you're a business, you should be getting, security checks, right? Almost every year. I mean, are you updated? If our students can, kind of in terms of their internships, like be providing that for our community as well, there's a lot that could be done that way. I'm sure that he would have, that he could come up with some partners that would love to have that service, and so they get that hands-on, real live, experience in that. But again, those are just ideas. What do we need to do going forward? Mr. Weinstein, what do you rope you back into the conversation?
I think really what Christina is looking for is for the strategic planning committee to, having seen her presentation, believe that this is a good direction that we're headed in, and that these are the types of pathways or career paths that we feel we can support, and that the strategic planning committee feels would be a good thing for our students.
I'm going to just add one more comment to this whole, discussion, which is, I think, and again, for the public, right, certainly any one of these pathways could lead to, post-secondary, a bachelor's, say, but not all of them are going to necessitate that, right? So and I think that that's an important thing for people to understand, so for instance, in cybersecurity, look, I'm in IT, right? Or have been for a long time. And, there's the kind of badge of honor if you don't get your bachelor's. You don't necessarily need it. Not that I'm discouraging people from going out and getting their bachelor's in computer science, but, that's not what my degree was in. And I do, pretty hardcore data analysis as a career. So, those certifications, right, are important. I really would like to see the buildings, the construction trade, right, as a seventh, there, even though I know it's going to take a little bit longer to get to, and some of these are going to take longer to get to, right, I think. you know, like say for instance, patient care. You know, I know that I'm very interested in us having a partnership with the new hospital as it gets built. You know, but that's not going to happen next year either. So, you know, there's things like that kind of make this, you know, you're not going to get it all at once, right? And I think that's again important for people to understand, but that this is where we want to get to. I mean, do you think? One last question, I'll shut up, right? But how are each of these academies situated in a way so that by the end of next year they'll be high quality, every single one of them?
You mean in my dream or in reality? So
In reality,
so
right?
the
I mean,
idea
so
is that
priorities that we need to.
no, well, I look at the quality matrix that we work through as you know, like a point scale, and our goal is to move each of those academies, you know, up those scales, and it'll probably take depending on the academy, 2 to 4 years to get them all up to what we would consider and matching those a high quality. The idea is to every year to see progress, every year be able to come back to the board or to the strategic planning committee and say, okay, here's where we were at the beginning of the 22-23 school year. Here's where we're at now. And this is how we've moved these matrix forward. So I think that's the plausible way of doing it. And that way we can see incremental change and improvement. The board can see it, the strategic planning committee can see it, and then we know we're headed in the right direction.
You know, one other thing I think would be important for us to understand is that last slide where you have the tutors, the industry liaisons, the counselors, the instructional coach. You know, how much personnel are you talking about? You know, does that personnel exist already? Can we kind of like, you know, repurpose, you know, kind of put people within this? You know, I think that's going to be an important part of, you know, of this discussion, right? Is any additional costs and how that gets paid for, you know, what buckets and what have you. So, all right. So then, do we need to make a motion, right, to accept this proposal to go to the board for its consideration?
Yes, that would be great. Then we can do the presentation to the board and the board can agree that that's the right direction.
Now I hear a motion. Do I hear a motion?
I'll move.
And I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. All right, 2 things that are going to the board. That's cool. I don't say it enough, right? But, and I think never say it. Thanks. This does excite me like to no end. Much more than the grain configuration, which just seems like moving puzzle, you know, pieces on a board. But this is, you know, great. Anyways, all right. Next up, facilities improvement and construction finance projects. Are we going to wrap review of current projects and proposed projects all together? All right, take it away, Mr. Elson.
All right. Can I share my screen here?
Yeah, you should have the ability.
Okay. Let me get this slideshow from the beginning. Okay. So you should be looking at a PowerPoint pretty similar. Okay, we'll move on. So for this presentation, we're going to go over all of the available funding that can be used for facilities type uses. So of course we have Measure P, which is the TK through 8 facilities bond that currently has about $29.5 million remaining funds. We have Measure Q, which is the 9 through 12 facilities bond, currently has about $19.8 million remaining in it. We have what we call Fund 14 or Fund 140, which is a deferred maintenance fund. It currently has about $1.4 million. To be clear, that particular fund does have restrictions on what type of facilities work it can do, and it's restricted to actual deferred maintenance style work. So painting, roofing, hardscape, so maintenance type items, not building new buildings. Versus Measure Q, both the bonds can build new buildings or do maintenance or do other types of facilities work. We have about $6.2 million in Fund 250, which is our developer fees. So that's mostly from the Harvest construction so far over there, but we're always getting new checks from just either residents doing expansions or other proposed projects. We just got actually a check for over $200,000 off the top of my head from a new project just over here on Harvard that's going into permitting. We have in Fund 350, which is state matching bond money, we have about $2 million. So the state's facilities bond, they're passing large bonds and everybody can put in for matching dollars when we do these large projects. And so we have actually received about $2 million. In general, that line for that funding is very long, both in number of people waiting and in the time which it takes to get through that line. So we do have some other projects that are still on that queue, but they're all on the what's called unfunded approval list. So that means the state has basically looked through all the application and decided that it does qualify, but they don't have funding to actually to give us the money. So that's beyond their bonding capacity. But right now we have $2 million. Those are pretty tightly restricted as well to facilities. And then in Fund 401, our special reserve, we have about $7.9 million for facilities usage as well. Any questions on the dollars available for facilities?
I don't have a question so much as a comment on the state facilities bond. I don't know if we all know, but there is legislation proposed. The governor's budget had proposed $2.2 billion in capital improvement funds. One of our legislators, O'Donnell, I think he's chair of the Education Committee in the Assembly, has proposed funding that list that Mr. Olson had referenced that we're on first. So there's about $3 billion worth of projects on that list. We're on it and we have $10 million on that list. There's a $6 million for Isbell. I think, Blanchard and two others. I can't remember who else is on that. Do you remember? Do you know who's on that list?
Blanchard. So I know we funded Renaissance and McKevitt work are the money that we've received. So I'm not sure other than the Isbell project, which other projects on the list off the top of my
I think
head.
Barbara Webster was on there, but again, if that could potentially, hopefully we'll know by July whether that's moving forward. That'd be nice. Then that's potential, quote unquote. Anyways, sorry
Right,
about
and I
that.
believe that's some of the proposed funding that keeps them under their state appropriations limit, because one-time facilities type spending keeps them under their state appropriations limit. So that's, I believe, not Prop 98, education dollars that are being proposed to go to the facilities. So that would definitely be a win for us if that goes through. All right, so some of the current projects that we currently have, either out for contract or under contract, Measure P, we are under construction, the Glen City Playground as we speak. That is here and they are working on putting it in. That was about a $210,000 contract. We have contracts for some work this summer. McKevitt, we're gonna get that whole school painted inside and out and do a lot of hardscape cleanup. So we're gonna jack up a bunch of concrete and asphalt and get that all fixed and cleaned up. reduce hopefully the trip and fall hazards around that school a little bit, and just make it generally a lot nicer. And we're pretty much going to do the same thing at Field. So paint inside and out and clean up a bunch of the hardscape. And at Field, we've cleaned up a lot of the hardscape, and we propose to continue around the playground and that area as well. So that'll significantly improve the grounds at Field. Measure Q at the high school, we actually just today received DSA approval for our 600 building AME upgrades. So that's part of, we received the $832,000 CTE grant to work on that building. And the district's gonna toss in about another probably $1.5 million to finish the other side of that building, because the grant was really only for one portion. And we figured, well, while we're working on it, we might as well do the whole thing. So the district is going to pick up the rest of that tab, and that's hopefully going to be a really beautiful addition to that campus. We're also in design phase for the literacy center, and hopefully we will bring something to the board soon of some of the conceptual drawings on the literacy center upgrades. Once again, going to be really beautiful on that campus. And I know that was a $2.5 million original kind of estimate. I'm moving that up to 3.5 to give us a little bit of space because of just all the inflationary talk and costs around construction. So we're going to pump that one up a little bit. And then also we just will be taking to the board, the next board meeting, a high school painting project to do a few of the buildings over there to start getting the paint cleaned up at the high school. So a short list of proposed projects, really the main things we've talked about. On the TK8 side, we really just have the Isabel main building that we've been, trying not to do too many huge major projects until we get the Isabel main building wrapped up, because that has potential to be, $20+ million project. And while we do have about $29 million available, we really feel like it's important to get that one a little bit more past design phase before we were to commit any major money into other projects, say building classrooms at other campuses or NPR buildings, which have been on the list. TK8 wise, there's things such as NPR/cafeteria at Bedell, new classrooms, basically at many campuses just to replace portables. On the 9 through 12 side, just this last board meeting, we discussed a pool. And so we are soliciting some proposals to go into a design phase for a pool so that we can better understand all of the costs involved and the maintenance involved. And we're also going to be talking to the city a little bit more about, and the Y, Ventura County Y, about some MOUs regarding operations and sharing costs. But we also discussed quite a bit band room and cafeteria kitchen upgrades on that campus, the two other major projects on the list. That is the three things that we discussed. Questions?
No questions, but I know just coming off of our CTE discussion, and Director Ornelas might want to jump in after me. But as we're going through the strategic, reconfiguration of schools and things, over the next few years are going to shift around, it'd be great to identify some additional CTE spaces, as we're considering like expanding our band area and maybe even connecting it to maybe some of our performing arts or our arts pathways that are still in development. I think this would be, just something for us to think about, consider, maybe identify some areas that we might conceptualize as we shift things around.
I think, kind of to Dr. Garcia's point, it seems like we're going to go into a big transitions kind of all over the place. Like, for instance, we have been talking about preschool, right? And, if we do, get into the preschool game, are there facility improvements we're going to need to make, to do that? And I know there's a grant that's available, to do some of those improvements. But I have no idea what the scope would be like and of those improvements and where they'd be funded out of. Certainly at Isbell, we have the main building, but if we start to bring down CTE, type of programming there, are there, adequate facilities to do that, right? And as we're considering design days, right, and branding our schools, are there going to be things at different elementary schools that will need, facility improvements or enhancements, due to that? I'd love to hear from all the staff to, on any of those, as to, what do we need to be paying attention to, beyond just what we've been, what's proposed on the list.
Yeah, and once again, on the TK through 8 side, I think that's why we've been kind of holding some of that money in our back pocket. I mean, we have the Isbell main building, but then we do recognize, yeah, we've done some studies, administration has on the preschool side. We have some facilities available that would only need some minor upgrades, but in other places we might need to drop some new portables or build new buildings. To your point, there are some grants available for that, but most of those, I think at best, they cover 75% of the cost. So, if we're looking at a $2 to $3 million couple of buildings and it's somewhere on a campus, then we're still going to have to come up with some reasonable amount of money. Of course, we could use developer fees for that, or our 401 special reserve that we I think we'll hold kind of in our back pocket as we look through these things. It's also why I think shoring up our deferred maintenance fund with some of the excess reserves that we have from the general fund will be really important. We've been contributing about $400,000 each of the last few years to the deferred maintenance, but if we can shore that up, some of the spending that we have right now could qualify for deferred maintenance if we were to shore up that fund. And that would then save the bond money for those type of building that you're talking about.
Do any other staff have things to kind of jump in with on that? Dr. Moore, your design day baby. Do you think you see that as having an impact?
I do, and I'm glad, I see this all come together. I think it's just so timely because I am very excited about we're all getting excited about the design day. I was just looking at the RSVPs and we're at 299 right now. And so the excitement,
that's awesome.
It's awesome. And I will say, if I can look at it a little, so we wanted to make it clear, and we've been going around and talking to different people and really making it clear that this is an entire district thing. So this isn't just about certificated. So out of the 299, 214 of them are certificated and 85 of them are classified. And so this is exciting because I think 214, I think Dr. Bond was telling me we had about 325 certificated employees in the district. So we have 214 who have RSVP'd so far. So this is exciting, and I'm hearing that the sites are getting excited about it, and it's really going to be an opportunity for them to come together. And I see especially what's happening in the CTE area and how Christina and Dr. Garcia are working with the middle school to take it down to that level, and then we'll take it down to elementary as well. So we create these really solid pathways all the way up. And I'm excited about it. Christine and I were talking. So I said, in terms of some of these pathways that you've chosen, are you able to identify around the county individual academies or individual programs that they're doing it really well and it really stands out? And she said yes. And so I told her I want her to take groups of people from the high school down to visit these. She's identified one facility that's doing patient care. And so I said, we've got to be second to none in our CTE program and our pathways, starting at middle school. And I just think we're on our way, and I just kind of see it all coming together with, some of the funding that we have. And Christina is the queen of the money that she finds, the grants that she finds. I get text messages over the week, got another 200,000, got another 90,000. It's like, I keep that going. That's exciting. So yeah, it's all coming together and really excited about it.
Just to that point, I know that, what is it, in some of our, the ELOP that we reserved $3 million.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I mean, obviously
ESSER.
that wouldn't go
ESSER.
towards ESSER. Is it ESSER?
ESSER, uh-huh.
I would assume it can't go to facility improvement, right? I mean, certainly
it
that,
could.
I'm sorry.
It can go to some facilities improvements.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another potential, right, source of funding for some of these projects.
Yeah, we haven't budgeted it out as such at this point, but Dr. Moore and I were just discussing how pretty soon here we're going to be reviewing the current year spending and looking at the plan and updating the plan for how much money is left and where we want to go at this point with that funding. So the board will probably see an updated ESSER 3 spending plan in the next couple of months. So we'll see if we want to shift any to facilities. Really, I would think though, in general, while it might not be directly facilities related as far as the ESSER 3 spending, it might be more equipment.
Mm-hmm.
Because in general, I see the design day needing equipment, band equipment, STEAM style equipment. Some rooms might need some minor renovation eventually. That's probably a year 2 or year 3 kind of discussion as far as facilities goes. So, but I think in the short term, we can access that money for equipment.
I think another thing that we need to, because this is like, I just view this as an initial, conversation, right? And to get the committee to kind of start thinking about all the different things we might want to, talk about, right? Or at least, propose or, remind us, one of the things, and there's a number of things actually that kind of reminds me, of things that might need some help, like the auditorium at the high school. If we are doing a performing arts academy, or the AME, do we have, the facilities to kind of showcase, that work, right? So that's one thing that I've been thinking about for a while. Another thing is, Renaissance, right? And how it fits in. And we don't often talk about Renaissance, but are those facilities adequate? Do we move them to another location? If we did move them to another location, does that free up room for, the band room? So we don't necessarily have to buy those houses and save, $2 million, which would kind of shift money around. Could you put the pool there? Would that make the pool easier to, if we decided to go for a big, pool, does that make that easier to do instead of trying to rehab what we've got there? Do we pull down that and then put the band room there? I want this committee to be an idea generator. At least that's what I would hope as a chair, to think about, the different needs that we have throughout the whole district, and how we can take a limited pot of money and stretch that, you know, as much as we possibly can for the benefit of the most students that we can. So what any other comments or additions to, you know, the conversation?
No, but in my initial comments, they're right in line with what you're thinking, Dr. Sandoval, just in terms of our strategic reconfiguration, in terms of how we move our various programs, you know, around the Santa Paula High School campus, and is there, you know, the possibility of, you know, expanding or shifting programs around, you know, around our campus as we shift our schools, right? So I definitely think that keeping CTE at the forefront of all our minds, thinking about the types of funding, grant funding, as well as other funding that can be focused on some facilities expansions in order to serve academic programs, right, including career technical education. I think and our extracurriculars, as well as our academic program with regard to music and theater. All of those are important considerations.
So to add to what Dr. Garcia mentioned and Dr. Sandoval, just some food for thought, some ideas that have come up in our CTE team meetings as we're rebuilding our programs. I think one of you mentioned performing arts or CTE under the AME pathway or academy has identified the need to be closer to the auditorium. If they're performing, it would be best when we are discussing facilities to be closer to the auditorium. Cybersecurity, it has been in preliminary conversations with our technology department. So our director of technology, Joaquin, has provided us valuable feedback and ideas, and he's willing to bring on our students to intern in his department at some point in the course sequence. So building that alignment and physically being in the same space or next to each other is another consideration that I would like to share with everybody. And then again, patient care, as we've mentioned, just something that's exciting that will be coming to the board is BC has donated hospital beds, a couple hospital beds to our patient care pathway. And so again, that'll be a space that we need to house these in so our students are able to interact. So just some ideas that would be valuable at this point to add into the conversation.
Yes, and don't forget about the maintenance warehouse. Just saying, we've got, you know, a whole other area of campus that we haven't even really thought about. So I can envision those patient care beds going in that area if we were to upgrade it and renovate it.
Mm.
So there's a lot, right? You know, and now I'm starting to get scared.
This requires decisions. Yeah, you know, I think what we've talked about, and I can share, you know, if you're interested, those same kind of worksheets that we've done in the past, where we have the dollars and the projects, and you can kind of see how much is left. So I have those for P and Q, and mostly we've talked about P and Q dollars. So, you know, we do have those other funds, developer fees, and the special reserve to kind of keep in our back pocket for whether it be some of the other ancillary, you know, modernization that we want to do, or if we just end up, you know, outgrowing our bond money, or out envisioning our bond money, or out strategic planning our bond money. We have those other pots of money that, you know, we should access. You know, they shouldn't always just sit around.
Well,
so
there's to that point, can you talk a little bit more about the special reserve fund?
yeah, the special reserve fund is really our RDA money. So
What does that mean?
What's that?
Oh, redevelopment. Oh,
Redevelopment Act that
yeah, that.
and so we still get some RDA money, and we put it over there. So that's really just kind of piled up for years. Every year it goes over there, and we haven't
What's the
accessed it
restriction?
for very much.
What's the restrictions on that?
It's really just facilities based, so actually when we do if we ever do like admin style facilities work, I normally like to access Fund 401. That way we're not using bond money that I really like to send to the schools. Developer fund meant to expand and improve the schools. We don't use it for the district office. So, when we have district buildings like maintenance or DO needs any work, like our building we're putting next door, adding the portable, we're going to use Fund 401 for that. Because a little bit more flexible.
Here's a question. So Measure P and Q, we need to run out, right? We need to drain those two because that's what they were there for. But how much of the additional funds would you would you want in each one? I mean, I'm sure like deferred maintenance, we don't want to drain that, right? Because you still want to have some if in case the roof goes. Is there the same consideration for, say, that special reserve fund where you would want to keep a couple, $1 million in case of emergency, quote unquote. So there's the how much is in there and how much we want to actually access. Or the special reserve just grow enough a year, year upon year that's not that much of a consideration.
The special reserve, we get about between 400,000 and 600,000 in RDA money every year. So that's how much it grows. No, I think that we should consider those funds as we continue to plan. I mean, I think as we talked about the other day at the board meeting, these projects don't, granted, once you commit to them, which might happen at a board meeting in a single night, the projects themselves don't just plop on campus overnight. They take a long time to design and get under contract and build them. And so we really should do our best to envision and create a strategic facilities plan so that we can start implementing as much as we can. Not to say we want to pile on with lots and lots of construction any particular place, but whatever we can commit to, we need to start doing, because Measure Q was passed in 2008. And Measure P, we sold the last bonds over a year ago now, and all that cash has been in the bank for almost 18 months. And those bonds, I think, were passed in 11 or 13. I don't know why. I always know if they're odd or even years, but 11 or 13. So once again, those bonds were passed a long time ago, and it's time for those facilities to see the fruits of that money. So on the Measure P side, I just think that the biggest liability on that worksheet is the Isbell campus. So, I think we made some strides today in talking about where the sixth graders are going to be at. I think we continue to need to talk maybe a little bit more about K-8s. But we definitely need to talk a lot more about K-8s, actually, I should say, because that also heavily affects spending. Both, if we decide that if we make any of our campuses a K-8, we're probably going to want to do some significant improvements, build some new buildings, build some new classrooms, maybe an NPR. We might want to change around, the size of the school, the front area, parking, offices. There's a lot we might do to a campus if it becomes a K-8 school. And so that might need $5 or $10 million of upgrades. So we do need to identify what we'll need to do and where those funds are going to be. And then the ramifications of, Isbell. And to kind of finish completing the dots, Isbell, we were just mentioning the high school. While it looks like the plan is a little bit more in shape, there still could be things that hinge on Isbell, because if that campus ends up with a lot less students, then we could shift where other, say, continuation school, it's been discussed that the continuation school might be able to go over there and extra classrooms that would become available. And then that frees up precious land for the high school that we've been, just trying to figure out where these places can go. So I think that would be an amazing idea if we could finish that strategic planning and see if that really works.
Mr. Weinstein, may I ask you to chime into this discussion?
I think it's a domino, and we've talked about this before. I think really what we're talking about is a domino effect of priorities. And I think that, you know, as far as the design day stuff goes and CTE, I don't think that it's going to take a ton of our construction funds or anything to do that. I think, like Kevin said, mostly it's going to be equipment and things and of that nature. But I do believe that once we start looking at Isbell, the building a new building and doing all that and looking at it, we calculated that there's going to be anywhere from 500 to 700, 550 to 800 students, depending on whether we do eventually do the TK8s. And so, you know, 550 students is, you know, 22 classrooms, plus the gym, plus the lab, the chemistry lab, biology lab center. So there's going to be a lot of extra buildings, a lot of extra portables, as well as a lot of extra room at Isbell to do something else there, whether it's to enhance it with CTE stuff or whatever to do. And I think also that, you know, to really make Renaissance the school it should be, I do believe we have to start thinking about the idea of moving it to a different location. It's pretty much impacted to where it's at. It holds 125 students, that's it. And there's usually more than 125 students that need Renaissance. And so it's almost like this picking and choosing who gets to go to Renaissance, who gets to go to Cyber High, who gets, instead of them all being able to go to alternative education. So I think the domino effect is really like, we have to really figure out what is the highest priority right now that we have to start working conceptually on and getting numbers on. And I think Isbell is definitely one. And I think at the high school, we have to determine, you know, what it is that we want to focus on first on the high school building. I think the other places like the design day and the elementary schools will just fall into place, and it won't really have that great of impact to the overall funding. So
then how are we going to, you know, what do we need to do to be able to get to come up with, and I think on this one, it's going to be options, right? You know, yeah, we're kind of sending a plan for, you know, CTEs, you know, as is. We're essentially doing that for grade configuration with a little bit more nuance to that. But here it's, you know, there's some pretty hard decisions to make. You know, how are we going to get to that spot?
well, I think we need to identify a project at each site, and then do a proposal for each project with the numbers and how we need to kind of move forward. I mean, every elementary school site has a little bit of things that need to be done. If you look at Bedell, they need a whole new cafeteria, multi-purpose room. The way that is right now is just even for the amount of students they have right now. I mean, we got to do something. You know, and just kind of look at each site and identify one project from each site that we feel we need to upgrade to make the site better for our current students. And then Kevin and his team needs to work with the architects, and we need to start bringing these proposals and ideas to the board and start vetting them out with the board and the strategic planning committee, and talk about, you know, well, if we do this, what are we not going to do? And what's the first thing that has to happen? We talked about the pool the other day, and, you know, we're saying, well, if we're going to do the band room, or we need the pool, but if we move Renaissance, is that an area to put the pool or the band room? And what are we going to do with the cafeteria at the high school? So I think the main thing is to identify the highest priority at each site, and then bring that to the board, and then bring proposals to the board and the strategic planning committee on what it is, what are the options, and what are the things we need to do first. Because there's so many things, I just fear that we're going to not be able to, you know, we're going to be stuck like a deer in headlights, and we're not going to be able to, you know, move forward. And there's things that we desperately need to do. Isbell has got to be done. I mean, we have two buildings there that are technically, we should not be, I mean, you know, we should not be using anymore. And so I think that's a high priority. And I think, you know, some of the other stuff about the quality of the educational process at each site needs to be identified, and that doing something to improve that quality of educational process at each site needs to become the highest priority for each of those sites. Then we need to get the cost analysis done, the timeline analysis done, all those fun things. keeping Kevin up at late into the night, working hard, and hopefully bringing back a pretty good plan for each site. And then the board can then talk about how we're going to fund it, and let the board and the strategic planning committee vet it and discuss it and give us more ideas, and again, do the town hall thing too. English and Spanish, and get that all done, just like we did the grade configuration. It took, what, 3 months? But it was really well worth it what we did. And I think we can do the same thing with facilities.
So when is our next meeting?
For strategic planning?
Scheduled for 2 weeks, right? Right before?
No, we're
No?
we're on a holiday in 2 weeks. So it's gonna be the last week of April or first week of May. I have to look at the calendar. Let me look at the calendar.
Maybe April
You know what? I
27th.
have the sheet that we put together. Sorry.
We have to be careful the board meeting the last week of April. If something needs to get ready for the board meeting, it can't be the same day.
Yeah. We were looking at April 27th as the next committee meeting. And the next board meeting is, besides the next one next week, is May 11th.
Okay, 27th sounds good.
27th, yeah.
How much can we, really anticipate having? Because it seems like we're going to focus on facilities since we're done with CTEs, we're done with grade config. Are we going to have? Is that enough time? Right.
Yeah, I think I can have some stuff. I mean, many things we discussed last year, actually. We didn't have all the pieces put together. So I can bring some of those pieces back that we discussed last year to kind of help us prioritize. But maybe a little guidance, a little bit of a priority. Should we talk about Isbell first? Should we talk about potential K-8 sites first? Should we talk about the pool band room first? Do you want to talk about all three?
What does the committee think? Liz?
Well, I mean, I think talking about Isbell would seem to be a wise thing to do, just because I think it's at the forefront of everyone's mind. And there have been a lot of questions about it. So I don't know, maybe I'll throw the softball to Mark. And what do you think, Mark?
Yeah, it's hard for me to talk about Isbell stuff just because it's where I've been teaching so much. I hear decisions or possible decisions being made, and I don't always follow the line of logic the way it's going, I think. But certainly the Isbell building is a serious priority. It's been that way for a very long time, and it's in mediocre shape. And we're just waiting to see what we do because we don't want to spend money on things until we know what we're doing. So I would say Isbell it seems like it's kind of the center of the wheel, and then everything else will kind of revolve around whatever decision we make there.
I have a pretty good amount of data around Isbell too, because like I said, we did that last year. We already went out to survey, we didn't do town halls, but we did get some data on options for the board, so we can review all of that. And now I guess that we're more, while the decision hasn't been made 100% by our board about grade span, sixth graders, we can kind of discuss that a little bit more in-depthly, I guess, at the next meeting regarding Isbell.
Okay. All right. Are there any further comments or discussion? Because it's coming up at 4 o'clock, and I'd like to get us adjourned. So, all right. Okay, here we go. All right, facilities next. We're gonna make some decisions and get that going too. So, So our next meeting will be April 27th.
Yes.
Mr. Olson will give us all the information we could possibly want, and then some, I'm sure. Actually, no, I'm never satisfied. You know that's true. That's the truth. So, but with that, thank you all for your time and your patience, and I think we're doing good work. So congratulations to us. With that, I'll adjourn this meeting at 4 o'clock. Take care, everybody.